Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be diving into quite possibly the most ambitious playing card project ever, the Eye of the Ocean by Stockholm17 and designer Lorenzo. But to call this one simply a playing card project doesn't do it justice at all. So Lorenzo teamed up with authors Sarah Lilly and Mara Akram to create an archaeo-fantasy novel expanding on the lore of the deck. It's the story of the search for the mysterious Eye of the Ocean, an ancient island with a location hidden within the decks and accompanying book. And the Kickstarter campaign to launch the deck included everything you need to dive into the lore. And as a huge proponent of story-based decks myself, this may well be the most immersive approach I've ever seen. Now, of course, you get the decks. There's 3 core versions, in fact, including Solus and Lunae editions, that's Sun and Moon, and Astra Polaris, a gilded version that features a unique and eye-catching die-cut tuck box. I'll look at those in a second, but there were tons of other parts to the story as well. And for me, the highlight has to be this, the beautiful leather-wrapped book to accompany the decks. This one reveals details of the story surrounding the search for the Eye of the Ocean, and it does so by way of a full novel out inside. Now, the outer cover is done with this really thick leather, dark brown color, and kind of gives you the feel of an antique book from the 1700s. It has details embossed all over the cover. There's cryptic patterns all over the front of the book that almost give you kind of an Aztec feel to them, but really kind of a distinct and yet kind of subtle design with that embossing throughout. But the real eye catcher of this cover here, as you unwrap the leather wrap there, is the astrolabe on the front. It's this brass-colored medallion that mimics the ancient astronomical devices that sailors would have used. It's actually affixed to the cover so it can turn like a dial. You can see it spinning there. It has the directions of the compass there on the front as well. It's a unique statement piece that really stands out on the shelf with the rest of the cover. In the back of the cover, you get a small little embossing there with the Stockholm17 logo. So that's upside down. There's the Stockholm17 logo. And as you unwrap the cover, you're greeted with the bold name of the book, The Eye of the Ocean, in that calligraphy font. Really cool look to it. Continuing on, as you open it up, you get a small feather quill inside, a nice little touch, just a little atmospheric piece, and of course, the book itself. So let's move that leather cover off to the side and take a look at the book. And the book itself is, like everything in the campaign, impressive. It's done on a black cover with that copper colored foil. Really cool design and illustration, kind of giving you that real antique feel to it overall. And it has this really interesting open spine that gives you a look at the binding on the sides. You just get the front and the back covers and then an open spine. It's a kind of cool look to it. Now, I won't get into all of the details of the story. I think everybody should pick this up and read it for themselves. But I will say it does tell the tale of a 1776 search for that island, the Eye of the Ocean, that I mentioned earlier. And not only that, but the project invites you to be part of the search. So the book and the cards together contain clues to a complex puzzle where you can help uncover the coordinates to the eye. And Lorenzo even offers prizes to those lucky enough to reveal the mystery. Before you ask, yes, I've solved the puzzle, and no, I won't give you any clues at all. But I will say you need the book and the 2 standard decks, Solus and Lunae, that we looked at a second ago, in order to solve it. The pages of the book give you plenty to pore over too. Of course, you get the full story of Captain Solveig, but you also get all over the place these little cryptic messages that are scrawled throughout the margins of the book. Maybe those are a little bits of hints. You get really beautiful illustrations, maps drawn throughout. It's a really immersive look and a lot of fun to thumb through, even if you're not solving the puzzle. It's just an amazing accomplishment and a really cool addition to the decks themselves. You can see even color illustrations on some of the parts. But the most unique and memorable portion of this is the deck-sized cutout that's in the back. Something you'll have to read the story to find out more about, but you can actually hide a deck within the pages of the book. But anyway, we've gotten this far. I think we're like 5 minutes into the video and we haven't even talked about the decks. So let's put the book aside and talk about some playing cards. And here are the decks, or more specifically, here's the half brick box that was also part of the campaign to hold the decks. And this one, like everything else, leaves nothing to chance. It's a beautiful statement piece. Now, these are made by Carrot Case Creations, who usually works in acrylic, but these are done, like some of their recent creations, in wood. And I love seeing their experimentation with different materials. This one's done in walnut with a linseed oil finish, and has just a great dark wood look to it. And it's designed to look like the cargo hold of an actual ship. That's why you get that lattice pattern on the top, and you can see the decks peeking their way out inside. It's finished with these antique brass colored fittings. You can see that intricate latch work there, the little carvings and details on there, and then that hammered in gold Stockholm17 sigil at the bottom. Opens up really simply, just kind of flip this piece up, and then you can pull that latch up, and allows you to open the box and reveal the decks inside underneath that hinged lid. Very cool half brick box, a great accompaniment, and of course a great way to store and display your decks. Now I got a couple of copies of a couple of versions of the deck, but of course we're going to get a look at the 3 main decks of the campaign. So let's put that box aside and get into the decks. I mentioned there were 3 versions, so we get the Solus or Sun, Lunae or Moon, and then the gilded Astra Polaris version. And we'll get a chance to look at all 3 of them, but let's start off by jumping right into the Solus version. Now, these tug cases were printed by Oath Playing Cards. That's Lautrec out of Greece. He does his own playing cards that are, of course, magnificent, but he's, among other things, a really fantastic printer with the work that he does on tuck cases and cards. And you can really see that brought to life with the production of these tuck boxes. They're uniquely shaped. We'll see all of that in a second. There are die cut elements in there. There's foil, there's embossing. It's just a really amazing technical achievement to put all of those details together in this tuck. It's done on a matte blue stock here. Just that really kind of weathered, aged look to the whole thing. And then has elements of gold foil throughout, as well as a light embossing, and like I said, those die cut elements. You get the Eye of the Ocean at the top, some Latin scrawlings there, and then I really love those sort of twisting gold foil lines. The middle here heralds the Solus version of the deck with that kind of Aztec looking sun there in the middle. And then you get little cryptic symbols, including the Stockholm17 logo and a representation of the astrolabe from the book in the background. Bottom, poker sized playing cards, and you can see the Roman numerals there for 1776, which is when the story sort of was taking place, or at least that hunt for the Eye of the Ocean. And now for me, I personally would have preferred this said 1716, because 1716 was actually when the details of the island were hidden. It was 60 years later that the story reveals they're trying to find the Eye of the Ocean. I don't know, it's a small detail, but 1776 was the date that's chosen here. And you can see those little cutouts that are revealing little details from one of the extra cards inside. We'll look at that extra card in its entirety in a second. On the sides here, you get the Eye of the Ocean on both sides. Bottom has your ad copy, mentioned Stockholm17, of course, Oath Playing Cards for the tuck boxes, and Cardamundi at the bottom, who printed the cards. And then at the top here, you get Lorenzo's initials, LG, and 1776. The back features some more die-cut elements, so we can actually see some of the cards peeking out there in the center, little map elements, and a really unique opening tuck box feature, this gigantic flap that actually tucks into itself here at the bottom. Beautiful look to it. You can see even more die-cut elements, that gold foil elements throughout, and even little bits of a map peeking its way out in the corners. It's a great immersive feeling tuck case, and extra little details that I really like on this one. We'll talk about that interior printing in a second, but I love the unique water wave style cutout there at the top. And of course, you've probably already seen that really cool interior artwork, some great vintage style, almost hand sketch style. And this actually reveals another one of the artifacts that plays a key role in this story. This is the iris on the inside. You can see it almost looks like an eye, but that beautiful piece of machinery drawn on the inside. But all of those die-cut elements, a tuck case which admittedly a little bit unwieldy. It's a little bit of a pain to kind of tuck this in there if you're opening this up repeatedly, but it's a beautiful artistic achievement and one that really fits in with the atmosphere of the deck overall. But let's take a look now at the cards themselves. And here they are, starting with the back design. Done in mixtures of that dark blue along with that sort of ivory color and the bits of gold foil elements throughout. It's a really beautiful, kind of nautical inspired back design. You can see the map that's forming sort of the base layer of this whole thing. And then little gold elements with symbols going all the way through. This again is another look at the iris there. If you turn it to the side, it almost looks like an eye with a pupil in the center. You can see the stars in the background, navigational tools that sailors would have used. It's just a really cool look to it overall. Great design. It's almost, I would say, or it is a two-way back design, so it kind of preserves that element. But gives you lots of extra little details to look at that, hey, may or may not play a role in solving the puzzle. But really great look to this one overall. Super thin borders on the edge. Just a beautiful job. I love cold foiling from Cardamundi. I think they do some of the best foil. It just shows up the best and cleanest on any of the decks. So there you go. That is the back design. You do get one extra card that's not really part of the printed deck. This one's just done on a regular cotton paper. But this one with the sun in the center for Solus mentions this is Solus Latitudo or Latitude, and has those little Roman numerals around the rings on the side. This is specifically designed to line up with the cuts in the tuck case. So this is the card that's meant to show on the front of the tuck case and be the one that shows through those cutouts. So there's your one extra non-playing card just done on a matte cotton stock. But now into the deck itself. So you do get 4 extra cards with this one, and you can see some of the beautiful artwork that we're going to be treated to throughout this one. So the first extra card actually shows you the eye of the ocean itself, a map of the mysterious island. We don't know where it is in the world. We don't know the coordinates of it, but we do know what it looks like, and here it is. Called, of course, the eye of the ocean because it resembles an eye there. Love the little bits of islands throughout and all the detail that goes into this one. You can see the background drawings that look a little bit like a map themselves. So almost like it's a map on a map or something like that. As you go through the other ones, you get a couple of elements that again play a role in the story. So this is the key-like codex, this really beautiful key. This is actually one that I didn't get one of these, but you could get a replica of the codex key as part of the campaign. Really cool little addition. Kind of regret not having picked one of those up myself. Next up is the astrolabe. So it gets its own card, and again, just resembles the one that we saw on the front of the book. And finally is the Solus card itself. So this one resembles that cotton card that we looked at, has the sun in the center, and then Solus Latitudo. So there's your 4 extra cards. The 4 aces are all really cool little elements, and they all feature islands throughout the world, and each one of them is named for their suit. So there's no one power ace, they're all kind of co-equal. The first one I think is the coolest of the islands, the Ace of Spades, which shows Spade Island. And the island not only looks like a spade, but even has kind of a skull look to it overall. And then those map details in the back, you can see the little scrawlings, symbols and notations that maybe a navigator would have left, or even little illustrations like ancient map makers would often include in their maps. So you get the little ship there, or the sea creature swimming its way through the water. The index and pip in the corner, very small, kind of a hand-drawn, hand-scrawled style, boxed in the corner, but nice, fairly easy to read, and they have that elongated spade pip. The other 3, you get Diamond Bay, the Isle of Clubs, that's another really cool looking one, and the Hearts Atoll. This one's a really unique one with that sort of central island in the middle of one of the bulges of the heart. So very cool overall. Love the 4 aces in the deck. All right, then on to the number cards. And the number cards continue that idea of having that map designed in the background. And in fact, you can actually put these together as a puzzle of itself to form a larger map. So the cards actually fit together, which is kind of a cool addition. You get the pips in the center, almost look like a stamped on bit. They're not true black. These are kind of more, I don't know, a dark brown, kind of to mimic the oxidized ink that might have been used to print these initially. And you'll notice on the number cards, there's no pip in the corner. So it's just that very small index, presumably just to sort of not distract from the rest of the artwork and kind of let you focus on the rest of the artwork. I think it's really nicely done. Beautiful look to them all, and I love the sort of uneven weathering patterns that go through on this one. Just every detail so well thought out as you go through these. The diamonds replace that brownish color with a aged red color on these. Kind of a classic color, but a little bit more weathering on them. You'll see some of them kind of have cool elements like the 4 diamonds here. Actually has the Eye of the Ocean written there in the middle. But love the look of these number cards, and just again fit the atmosphere so well. So we go into the clubs. There's your 4 clubs with the 17 there in the middle for Stockholm 17. And then finally into the hearts. And finishing those out. So beautiful artwork, like everything else in the deck. And then we get to the court cards. Now, if you've seen other of Lorenzo's decks, you'll recognize some elements of the art style, but these are beautifully illustrated. And they're meant to be some of the citizens or the royalty of the actual Eye of the Ocean island, that ancient civilization that lived there. They're beautifully illustrated. I love that muted color palette, the sort of pale reds, that light yellow, and then that sort of aged blue color on there. Really unique, distinctive looks to all of them. They have sort of cryptic elements in their hands, maybe hinting at some of their technology. And if you look really closely, there's also extra little details, like even in their clothing, you'll get little bits of tapestry that depict, in some cases, the character themselves. You get the Jack of Spades, and then almost like the Jack of Spades depicted within his clothing. All sorts of little details to pick out as you go through these, and every one of them has a distinct look. I love the trident there in the King of Spades hands. The red cards just pull out some of that blue, so don't have as much blue in them and are mostly that red and yellow, so a slightly different color scheme. There's another cool one, the Queen of Diamonds actually holding an astrolabe in her hand. But I absolutely love these court cards. So much detail went into them. They fit into the story well, and they fit into the art style of the deck overall. Just a great atmospheric look overall. There's another astrolabe there in the Queen of Hearts hands. I love the robe just sort of covering, that ornate robe covering up the bottom half of her face, gives that mysterious vibe. And then finally the King of Hearts with that little cube in his hands and the one eye, so the one-eyed king there. And that is the deck. Now, these are printed by Cardamundi. Great handling as always from Cardamundi. This is their slimline stock, and no complaints on that front. This is my favorite stock in the world, and by the way, the best palette if you're going to use metallic inks or metallic foils on them. So really great on those. Nice thin stock. Not that these are necessarily going to be the cards that people are going to be playing with a lot, but if you did, they handle really great for that. All right, but that is only one of the 3 decks. So let's take a quick look through the other 2. So next we're going to look at the Lunae version, and I will say a lot of similarities. This one, for the most part, is pretty much the same as Solus. A few key differences. Obviously, the tuck case changes colors, uses more of this teal color instead of the darker blue. The foils on it are silver instead of gold, and of course, we have a moon instead of the sun there on the front for Lunae. The cutouts, by the way, this is a small difference, but the cutouts are actually a little bit different on this one versus Solus, so not quite in the same places. But as you turn to the back, a lot of the same artwork throughout. Here we get a look at the Codex key that wasn't on the Soleil version of the deck. And as we open it up, same artwork on the interior of the tuck, but a slightly different color to the cards themselves. So let's get this one put aside and look at the cards. So the color of the back design has definitely been changed up a little bit. Some very slight differences, including replacing now the silver foil, which I like quite a bit. It has a great shine to it, and that teal color. For me, I like this back design a little bit more. It doesn't quite have as much contrast as the dark blue, but I think the teal just sort of fits that ocean theme a little bit better for me. Little bit of differences on some of the cards as well, but not much. So we get a Lunae card instead of the Solus card. But the cards themselves are pretty much the same on the faces. So the differences here are going to be extremely minor, just a couple of differences on the cards. But for the most part, once we've seen the Solus deck, we know what the Lunae deck's going to look like, other than those couple of different cards. So that is deck number 2, but we have one more to go through, and it is the most impressive, I would argue, or the most unique of the 3 with Astra Polaris. Now, this one has a lot of changes to the tuck case. Obviously, it's done on a black matte stock and features a lot of differences in the design. Most notably, you'll see that the cutaways actually give you kind of a deteriorated look to the tuck box. So the tuck box actually is revealing the cards almost in their entirety in the inside, which is nice. Even without opening it, you actually get a look at that gilding on the cards themselves. But it gives you a really cool look to it. The cutaways all the way through. And if I open up the flap here, you can see just how much of the box is eaten away with that unique die cut feel to it overall. Design on the front here, a little bit different. So Astra Polaris. Polaris is the North Star, and so you get the star there in the center. And then the wheel that is a little bit more representative of the planet. So you can see Neptunus and Pluto, among others, represented there on the outer ring. You get almost what looks like moon phases there at the bottom. And then Eye of the Ocean is actually cut off by the deteriorated parts of the tuck box. Sides there, you can start to see the Eye of the Ocean, but on one side it's kind of cut out. More ad copy on the bottom, and then some cryptic symbols here. This is some coordinates, and this is actually how Lorenzo depicts dates on here. So this would be, I think, December 3rd, 1715, represented there on the side. Back here features a much bolder look at the map, and then has a little Latin palindrome or quasi-palindrome that Lorenzo actually includes in a lot of his decks. This is Si sedes non is, which read forwards or backwards can either mean if you do not sit, you go, or if you do not go, you sit. So very cool addition. And then lifting this out, you can see the reveal of the cards inside. Interior pattern, definitely cut away by the deteriorated parts of the box, but you get that gold repeating swirl pattern. So great look to this one overall, and just a definitely distinctive, unique deck. And some very cool elements on the cards themselves. So the first thing you'll notice is the antique gold gilding on this one. Has a actual kind of almost like a camouflage style pattern done in multiple shades of gold. It's a great look to it overall, and something I've never seen before. I love unique gilding patterns. And the back design of the cards matches that gold with gold foil throughout. So you get that black kind of mysterious star-inspired design in the back. A lot of grayscale colors, but then highlighted with lots of gold foil. Not just the same elements we saw before with that crossing eye pattern in the center, but also the borders done in gold as well, which always nice. Gives you a nice look when you pair it with that gold gilding. Great match. So very cool aesthetic to these. The card faces themselves, just like the other two, very similar card faces. So we're not going to see too many differences as we get to these. But that gilding and the back design combined with that unique tuck box really makes Astra Polaris a distinctive addition to the trio. And that is it. So we've gone through a lot, but that is the look at the Eye of the Ocean. It's an amazing and incredibly ambitious campaign. Not just the beautiful decks, which I think are just masterfully illustrated, would have expected nothing less from Lorenzo, but to amplify that, to add in things like the half brick box or the book that really just bring it all together and add the lore. It's an amazing achievement, and one that I cannot recommend highly enough. Even if you don't want to go solve the puzzle and dive into the book and all of that, just picking up the decks is in and of itself an experience. But if it was my money, I would go after the whole thing. I'd get the decks, I'd get the book, pour all the way through it. I did it myself, and it was worth all of the time, all of the effort to do so. So can't recommend that highly enough. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this look at the Eye of the Ocean as much as I did. And make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.